Hi, I'm Gary Bembridge, and I'm going to share with you in this video 10 ways that ocean cruising is different from river cruising, and hopefully that'll help you make up your mind if ocean or river cruising is better for you, and also perhaps if you're trying to decide between which of the two to do. So to explain the differences, I'm recording all the parts about cruise ships here on board a cruise ship, and this is Windstar's Starbreeze. And so to tell you about the river cruising perspective, I'm filming this on board the Emerald Dawn, which is part of the Emerald Waterways line. Well, the most obvious difference is size. So cruise ships range from small intimate yacht size. For example, I'm currently on Windstar Starbreeze. That takes 212 guests. Just across the way from us, docked today, is the Norwegian Jade, which takes 2,200 passengers. And of course, you go right up to big Royal Caribbean ships, which can have 3,000 or more passengers. So cruise lines will generally be much bigger than river cruise ships. So whilst river cruise boats, like the one I'm on now, they are just much smaller. So they have to deal with being on the rivers. So they're constrained by their length, by their width, by their height. So at most they tend to take around 150 to 200 passengers at the most, because they're just constrained. It therefore means that everything's smaller, including things like the cabins. The cabins tend to be on average a little bit smaller in size. Cabins on cruise ships generally are also larger than river cruise ships, just because they're not as constrained on size. Another key difference between ocean and river cruising is destination. So ocean cruisers obviously travel on the ocean, river cruisers obviously on the river. So ocean cruisers will do a couple of things. They'll either go from country to country along, perhaps the Mediterranean, for example, hopping from country to country. They might hop between islands, such as in the Caribbean. They can also take you between continents, whether that's North America and Europe. And also they can take you to very remote destinations like the Arctic or the Antarctic. But obviously it's ocean-based. So what about river cruises? Well, as the name would suggest, they cruise along rivers, inland rivers, and they go to places the cruise ships are just too big to go to. Another key difference is where they dock. So river cruise boats will generally dock right in the heart of towns or cities where they're visiting. The only thing, of course, though, is there may be a couple of boats in at one time. So sometimes they're actually docked next to each other, and you actually have to walk across them to get onto the land. However, ocean cruisers often, because they're very large, have to go to very specific ports. Of course, some of the smaller ships, like the one I'm on now, the Windstar ship, can often dock quite close to the various cities and tender people in, because it's a much smaller ship. Another key difference is excursions. Now, because ocean cruise ships have so many more passengers, they tend to offer a very broad range of excursions when they're visiting a destination. So there might be some quiet, calm, panoramic bus-based ones, through to very active tours, because they have to cater for hundreds or thousands of guests. So they will often have lots and lots of different excursion options of all different types, and to cater for all the different tastes on board the ship. It's a little bit different on river cruises. River cruises tend to be more walking-based tours focused on arts, history, culture. Excursions on cruise liners also tend to be an extra cost, so they're not included in the fare. You have to pay extra, and you can pay anything from $20, $30, $40 up to several $100s depending on the excursion. When it comes to excursions on river cruise boats, there's normally one included excursion every single day, and that's normally included within your fare. They tend to be walking tours. A lot of river cruise lines will often offer sort of bonus excursions, which you do pay for, but largely speaking, one excursion per day, walking tour included in the fare. Cruise ships tend to offer a lot of choice when it comes to dining. So they'll have a main dining room, they might have specialty restaurants, they'll often have a buffet or Lido restaurant, there'll be room service. So generally speaking, there's a lot of choices of places to eat and dine. Some of them have extra costs to them, so some of the specialty restaurants you might have to pay a small extra fee to go to, but there will be a lot of choice on pretty much all ocean cruise ships, even on some of the smaller yacht-based cruise lines. When it comes to river cruises, there's normally only one dining room, like this one on the Emerald Dawn. You'll normally have a buffet breakfast, either a buffet lunch or perhaps a served lunch, and normally a 3 or 4 course served dinner in the evenings. There's no room service, there's no alternative dining, there's one dining room, one sitting when everyone sits down at one time. And depending on the cruise line that you're on, you'll find on river cruising there's much less choice often, because the galley is so much smaller. So it depends a little bit on the line that you're in. So one dining room, one set time, less choice. Cruise ships generally have, particularly the medium-sized and larger ones, have a lot of entertainment. So there'll be a daily program with lots of activities, you know, and depending on the cruise line, they might be sort of quite frivolous ones, or if it's a more serious cruise line, which is more enrichment based ones. But there'll be quizzes, there'll be competitions, there'll be evening shows, often big sort of lavish production type shows, sort of West End, Broadway, Las Vegas type shows. There might be guest entertainers, there'll be a casino, there'll be bands playing around the ship. So there'll be a lot of entertainment. It's a little bit different when it comes to river cruise boats. So on a river cruise line, you're not going to find a lot of entertainment. The entertainment will tend to be perhaps some local singers or local dancers will come on every now and again. There might be a movie night, there might be a quiz night, but the entertainment is really focused around exploring some of the local folk and habits, and also port talk. So you'll often find there'll be a port talk and briefing. There's not casinos, there's not big glitzy shows and that kind of thing. On river cruise boats, there's much less amenities. As I mentioned earlier, river cruise boats are constrained in terms of the size to get down the rivers. So you won't find casinos, you won't find kids clubs, you won't find all that kind of stuff. What you'll normally find is one lounge or bar, and some of the new and more modern river cruise boats, they might have a little plunge pool, they might have a small fitness room, they might have a little mini spa or hairdressers, maybe a tiny little library, but there will not be lots of extra amenities on a river cruise boat. You normally just have the one main bar lounge. Now when it comes to cruising on the ocean cruise ships, you'll find that the fare covers basically accommodation, it covers food, that's pretty much what it covers. However, you'll find often a lot of extra costs. So you'll pay for Wi-Fi, you might have gratuities added on, the excursions you'll have added on, drinks, some of the entertainment might be obviously gambling and bingo, all those kind of things. So often there'll be quite a lot of extra costs. So one of the key things when you're looking at going on an ocean cruise ship is understanding what the fare includes and what all the extras are going to be, because they could be quite a substantial on cost. Now, unlike ocean cruising, river cruise lines fares tend to be all-inclusive. Now, it does differ a little bit based on the line you're on, but largely speaking, your accommodation's included, all your meals are included, drinks are included normally, certainly drinks with meals are included, and that's wine and beers. Wi-Fi is included, gratuities are normally included, and as I mentioned earlier, excursions are normally included. So the fares tend to be much more all-inclusive. So it's very important when you're comparing a river cruise line fare to an ocean cruise line fare that you bear in mind that there are a lot of inclusions. Another key difference between ocean and river cruising is seasickness. Obviously, if you're heading out to the ocean, even in areas that are normally quite calm, there is a risk that storms might blow up or there might be a swell. So there is always a risk of seasickness. Now, modern cruise ships have lots of technology. They have stabilizers, obviously have lots of technology around predicting where storms are, and the captain can make a lot of adjustments to try and minimize the risk of seasickness. There's ways of mitigating it. For example, you might take a cabin which is in the center of the ship, very low down, so the movement is much less. You choose to cruise in calmer times of the year in areas that are, generally have much less chance of storms at that time of year. But there is always a chance of seasickness. Of course, there's remedies you can take. Most cruise ships will offer things like ginger, which helps. They will also offer seasickness tablets, or you can go and see the doctor. There's lots of things that you can do to mitigate seasickness. If you're worried about seasickness, a river cruise is a great idea because it's pretty much, if not totally impossible, to get seasick. There's no swells, your land's within easy sight, the rivers are calm and smooth, so the chance of getting motion sickness is negligible. Packing and what you need to take on a cruise is also different. So again, it depends a lot on the cruise line you travel with, but you might find you need to take lots of permutations of clothes. So there might be different dress codes, there might be formal nights, so where you have to dress up in a jacket and tie if you're a gentleman, or smart gowns. So it depends a little bit on the cruise line. Some of them have themed evenings. So one of the key things with cruise lines is you need to understand what the dress code is for that particular cruise line that you're traveling on, because it may vary and you may need to take lots of different permutations of clothes, not only for the weather but also to follow the dress codes on a cruise ship. A little bit different on river cruises. On a river cruise boat, packing is in some ways so much easier because the dress code on river cruise lines, even the most premium of them, is very relaxed. So it tends to be a smart casual dress code even at evenings. So an open neck polo shirt or even jeans for men and the equivalent for ladies. Part of the reason is because there's not loads of storage, etc., within the cabins, so they don't expect you to bring lots of formal gear. So even on perhaps a formal evening like the captain's welcome party or the farewell party, you'll find, you know, a lot of people will just wear polo shirts and perhaps some smart slacks or the equivalent. So it's a pretty casual dress code, and you don't have to bring lots of different permutations to follow a particular dress code. Most cruise lines have lots of choice. It's not very regimented. There's lots of opportunity to basically go with the flow. You can have lots of choices on where to dine, when to dine. There's going to be lots of different things that you can do on the ship in terms of entertainment. They're generally speaking quite large, even on the smaller yacht type ships. There's lots of spaces, little quiet corners you can find. So it's actually pretty much, if you want to be anonymous, if you want to find little quiet corners, it's not a very regimented system. There's pretty much, you can do what you want when you want, and you'll find a place to eat, a time to eat, something to do. It's quite a flexible experience going on an ocean cruise ship. Now, unlike ocean cruising, river cruising is much more structured, much more regimented. So there's a daily program which doesn't give lots of choice, and it's very organized. So there'll be set times for meals, there'll be set times for excursions, set times for port talks, set times for all the activities across the day. So the day is planned out in quite a lot of detail. There's not lots of room for flexibility. It's a very set structure, and in fact, in my experience on river cruises, there's not often a lot of downtime, because literally there's something planned for pretty much every minute of the day. So it's a much more structured environment than you find on ocean cruising. So there you have it. There's some key differences between going on an ocean cruise and a river cruise, and hopefully that's helped you make up your mind if either of those are right, or if you're thinking from moving from one to the other. If you've enjoyed the video, I'd love it if you gave a thumbs up, and of course please subscribe to the channel. And you can also visit the site tipsfortravellers.com/cruising, where you'll get loads of tips on both ocean and river cruising.